And welcome, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching A News. Let's have a look at the headlines. U.S. military widens its offensive on Iran. Tehran says it is reviewing de-escalation proposals. Andy Burnham becomes the UK's 7th Prime Minister in a decade, pledging a return to stable government. And joy for supporters as Spain becomes World Cup champions. But there are clashes on and off the pitch at the result. Thank you for tuning in. The US-Iran conflict is spiraling, with fresh American strikes hitting multiple Iranian cities, including a deadly attack in Tabriz. Yet, despite the fierce military exchange and an active naval blockade, Tehran says it is now reviewing urgent de-escalation proposals.
The US military has significantly widened its offensive on Iran. An attack targeting a military zone southwest of Tabriz left one dead and several injured, while multiple sites were hit in Bushehr and Isfahan. The barrage follows strikes on Iran's Darkovin nuclear site, though the International Atomic Energy Agency ruled out radiological hazards. At sea, American forces are enforcing a strict blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, redirecting 6 commercial vessels and disabling another.
We control the strait. They don't control anything. So we'll see what happens, but we hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2. Great patriots.
Despite the Pakistani-mediated ceasefire signed last month completely collapsing, back-channel diplomacy is reviving.
Proposals have been put forward by mediators. We were informed of them and we have received them. However, please allow me to refrain from going into detail at present. Nevertheless, the reality is that the diplomatic service has been working actively in recent days, and certain ideas from a number of mediators have reached us. Yes, this is confirmed.
However, during the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman's briefing on Monday, he added that Tehran firmly denied President Trump's recent claim that an American prisoner in Iran was released as a goodwill gesture. Meanwhile, the tactical theater continues to expand as casualties rise. Official US losses stand at 17 dead, including a recent fatality in northern Iraq and more than 420 wounded. In response, Tehran has activated a Code 110, an emergency protocol for systemic retaliation. Under Operation Nezor 2, the Revolutionary Guards claim local intelligence assisted in targeting US aircraft at Aqaba Airport, while its prior strikes in Jordan are alleged to have killed dozens.
Meanwhile, Washington blames Tehran for the collapse of maritime agreements. Speaking before his departure to the Philippines, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused Iran of violating commitments to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. While Rubio acknowledged receiving diplomatic signals and noted a growing internal split within Iran's leadership over its crippled economy, he warned that American military responses will continue.
What I will say is that the United States always remains open to a diplomatic solution. We've tried multiple times with Iran, and we'll continue to try. If that door opens, we'll be happy to see it open. But and they continue to send signals that they want to talk, that they want to negotiate, but their behavior is what we're responding to. And their behavior is they're launching missiles and drones against ships.
Over in the UK, Andy Burnham is set to become Britain's 7th Prime Minister in a decade later on Monday. Taking over the helm of the Labour government, Burnham inherits a troubled economy and surging support for far-right opposition parties. After accepting the King's mandate, Burnham is set to immediately overhaul his cabinet, handing out key posts to allies. Global markets are closely watching his pick for Chancellor, as the new leader pledges to make the cost of living crisis his top priority.
laid by one person more.
As we're waiting for Burnham to take up his post, joining us to talk on what can be expected from Andy Burnham is John McTernan, former political secretary and director of political operations at 10 Downing Street for PM Tony Blair. John, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on A News. Now, before we get to the new Prime Minister, Starmer is about to give his farewell speech at Downing Street. What kind of an inheritance does he leave for Burnham?
Look, he leaves in terms of public spending at much higher levels than Starmer himself inherited. The first budget of Starmer and his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, raised taxes, raised public spending by £80 billion a year, raised capital spending and investment by £40 billion. So in that sense, some really important decisions were made, but the inheritance also was tainted by the desire of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer to cut benefits, take away money from pensioners, people with disabilities, to not give extra benefits to children. And so a kind of cruelty was the face of the Labour government, and that has gone down really badly.
Now, John, Burnham has not said much on how he specifically means to tackle many of the major issues ahead of his speech today. But according to the journalist who interviewed him for The Times, Burnham is meant to set out a 10-year plan. How ambitious is that, would you say?
Well, I think it's realistic as well as ambitious, because it took 14 years to break this country. It took 14 years to run the country into the ground under the Tory and Lib Dem coalition, and then the Tory party. And I think that is a serious job. And so Andy Burnham has to have 2 terms in office. If he comes into as Prime Minister now, he gets 3 years and then another 5 years. And in that sense, he's looking for being re-elected in 2029 and then re-elected again in 2034, giving him the chance to rebuild, because for long-term things like more housing and more infrastructure and better railways, you do need time. But for immediate help, Andy is very clear how important our bus services to most people, to most parts of the country. And in the bus services, he could make an immediate change. He could bring in something like a £2 cap on bus fares, a daily cap on bus fares. So things like that. So immediate help, some immediate changes like taking Thames Water, our privatised water service for London and the South East, taking that back into public control. So there's things he can do which are both symbolic and practical, but everything he does and says is a down payment on a 10-year programme, because it will take that long to fully restore Britain. And by the end of that, maybe much closer relationships with the European Union, for example. And definitely by the end of that, a very different president in the United States.
Well, we're also waiting for Burnham to name his cabinet. Which of those appointments would you say will be most closely watched by the British society?
I don't know what to do.
We are having some connection issues. Let's see what else is in the news. And it's the most important, unimportant thing in the world. Football's biggest prize has a new home. Spain beat Argentina 1-0 after extra time to win the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It was a final that delivered drama on and off the pitch, as fans, world leaders, and global stars gathered for tournament's biggest night. Here's a look back.
Celebrations and fireworks lit up as Spain were crowned world champions again after a 1-0 extra-time victory against defending champions Argentina in the 2026 FIFA World Cup final in New Jersey. The win ends a 16-year wait after the last time the men's team picked up the trophy. Spanish supporters erupted after the final whistle, with scenes of joy from the stadium in New Jersey to the streets of Spain.
Like, it took forever. I was just nervous. I didn't want to go to penalties. That was it. They deserved to win, pure domination. They were the better team, so I called it. So sorry, Messi and Argentina, but Spain's the better team now.
However, for Argentina, the defending champions, who lifted the trophy in Qatar in 2022, missed the chance to become the first team since Brazil in 1962 to retain the World Cup. Their hopes faded after Enzo Fernandez was sent off late in normal time, while 39-year-old Lionel Messi was left without another World Cup title in what is expected to be his final appearance at the tournament.
What can I say? We're sad because we weren't able to bring home the trophy. My deepest thanks to everyone, to all the fans and all the people who carried us today. Whatever little strength we had left, they gave us that strength and pushed us to keep fighting until the very end with the match still open, but it wasn't to be. They were deserved winners. That's the reality.
Meanwhile, more than 80,000 fans watched one of the biggest halftime shows in World Cup history, featuring performances by Madonna, Shakira, Burna Boy and other international stars. Security was also heightened as US President Donald Trump joined FIFA President Gianni Infantino on the podium to present the medals.
So we're very proud of our country. We're very proud of the job that was done by everybody. We congratulate Gianni Infantino and all of his staff and the incredible job they did.
As the celebrations continued, Spain left the stadium as world champions once again, while Argentina departed, knowing their reign had come to an end.
Celebrations for reaching the final in Buenos Aires turned violent on Sunday after Argentina's defeat in extra time to Spain. Police used tear gas and arrested 15 people as supporters threw stones and bottles near and in the city center, with the unrest forcing the closure of several main roads. Despite the clashes, President Javier Milei announced plans for a national holiday to honor the team's runners-up finish, with the date to be confirmed later. Okay, after the break, more from Ukraine after Kyiv launched an unprecedented drone strike on Moscow. Don't go away.
More than 20,000 partisan fighters have been hidden. We found only 3,000.
My grandmother had 3 brothers. In the graveyard, the body of just one of them.
Their struggle was very unequal and against a state that had defeated such a force as Nazi Germany.
A lot of resistant fighters in the beginning of Soviet occupation actually would end up here, if not killed somewhere in the woods.
She was arrested at her home. Her 7-year-old daughter ran to her and screamed, "Mom, please take me with you." This record having the names of the individuals who were placed in the list of deportations.
I was born in Kengia, in a labor camp. My mother was a partisan liaison.
The first years were extremely difficult, of course. Poverty, hunger. The temperature sometimes dropped to minus 50 degrees.
The train stations, like the one behind me, once said goodbyes to thousands of people carried from across the Baltic states toward Siberia.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome to A News, unfiltered news and analysis from the region and beyond. From Washington to Beijing, Tehran to Kabul, to Tbilisi to Tashkent. Hello, I'm Jay. Challenges.
Today is the third.
We're with you 24/7, taking you live to the front lines of the day's biggest stories. Welcome to Gabala. Hi, Candy. One important note to Fierce. I'm here. Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Reporting from Paris,
Dar es Salaam, Tel Aviv,
Washington,
London,
Moscow,
Kyiv, Berlin,
Rio de Janeiro, Beijing, Bangkok, Tbilisi, Tashkent, Almaty, Kazakhstan, Port Sudan, Tehran, Islamabad, Istanbul,
Kabul, for ANU.
Welcome back. You are watching A News. Ukraine has launched an unprecedented wave of over 400 drones at the Moscow region and struck multiple Russian vessels in the Black Sea. The massive overnight retaliation comes just hours after deadly Russian missile barrages hit Kyiv and a commercial grain ship near the port city of Odessa.
In a historic overnight assault, Ukrainian drones targeted the Moscow region, striking a major oil depot in Podolsk over 400 kilometers away from the border. The attack forced the evacuation of the Wildberries Logistics Center and injured 2 civilians across residential areas in Domodedovo and Odintsovo. While Russia's defense ministry claims to have intercepted 381 drones nationwide, Ukraine's unmanned systems forces reported a massive victory at sea, hitting 6 Russian vessels, including 2 Shadow Fleet tankers, bringing July's total to 183 crippled ships, alongside drone strikes on 7 power substations in occupied Crimea.
We continue implementing the plan of long-range sanctions against Russia for the war, the oil sector, supplies for the occupying forces, our Ukrainian mid-strikes and long-range strikes. These are our responses.
Kyiv's massive retaliation follows a relentless Russian bombardment. A barrage of over 40 missiles struck the Ukrainian capital on Sunday, while airstrikes in Zaporizhzhia left at least 2 dead, 42 injured, including 8 children. The escalation extends to the Black Sea, where the death toll from a Russian cruise missile strike on a commercial grain ship near Odessa has now risen to 10. On the ground, Moscow claims its forces captured the Vonoye settlement in the Dnepropetrovsk region, as President Zelensky renews urgent appeals for Western allies to accelerate air defense deliveries.
Security is being stepped up across Delhi on Monday ahead of a youth-led march on India's parliament, organized by the so-called cockroach movement. Officers have put up barricades as demonstrators demand the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. It comes after exam papers for the country's biggest medical school were leaked, forcing millions of students to retake the test. The campaign gathered momentum after a leading activist began an indefinite hunger strike and was taken to hospital on Saturday. Analysts say the movement reflects growing anger among young people over unemployment and corruption. In Japan, around 25,000 people gathered outside Parliament in Tokyo on Sunday to protest against the government's plans to expand the country's military. Demonstrators are opposing proposals to revise Japan's pacifist constitution and relax restrictions on arms exports and move away from the country's long-standing non-nuclear principles. Critics accused Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's government of pressing ahead with the reforms despite a fall in approval ratings. Hungary's president has signed a constitutional amendment ending his term in office after it was approved by Prime Minister Peter Magyar's ruling party. The decision has prompted mixed reactions from Hungarians, with some welcoming the move and others raising concerns about its impact on the country's democratic institutions.
Hungarians reacted on Sunday after President Tamás Sulyok signed a constitutional amendment ending his term as head of state. The measure was passed by Prime Minister Peter Magyar's ruling TISA party after it secured a 2/3 parliamentary majority in April. Magyar says the reforms are aimed at removing officials appointed under former Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government. Sulyok said he was legally obliged to sign the amendment, but warned it had harmed Hungary's constitutional democracy and the rule of law. Some Hungarians said the president had failed to act independently during his time in office.
He never said anything when he would have really needed to. There were several cases in the past period when it would have been really good to hear a neutral and independent opinion, and that did not happen.
Tamás Sulyok was a character of no weight. He never said anything. He never took a position. He just signed everything in silence. He said what they told him to say. He really was a puppet.
Others questioned the way the amendment was passed and expressed concern over its implications.
To be honest, I don't really like it when laws are passed retroactively. I don't really like what's going on in Parliament now. I'm not saying that I don't like the change, but I think it has taken a bad direction, with forcing Tamás Sulyok to resign. I'm curious to see what will happen now, but I don't have good feelings about it.
Now a new one-party system will evolve. The Tisza party will put their own puppet there, obviously. They will do now what they want. Even until now, the president did not have much right, unfortunately. But this way, it will be even worse.
The constitutional amendment ends Sulyok's presidency immediately, with Parliament Speaker Agnes Forsthofer set to become interim president from Monday, as Hungary's new government continues its effort to reshape institutions established during the Orbán era.
Turning to climate-related news, Europe's latest heat wave is taking an increasing toll beyond public health. A new report warns that rising temperatures could cost Italy billions of euros each year, while the extreme conditions are also disrupting transport, energy production, and economic activity across the continent.
Persistent high temperatures could cost Italy between 6 and 12 billion euros a year, according to a report released on Saturday by the Italian Confederation of Business, Tourism and Services. According to report, if Italy experiences between 30 and 60 days of extreme heat each year, businesses are likely to face rising energy costs, lower labor productivity, and reduced turnover. The report also says prolonged heat could change consumer behavior and travel patterns, putting additional pressure on the retail and tourism sectors. Heat waves are becoming more frequent as Europe warms faster than any other region. Many scientists say human activity is increasing the likelihood of more frequent and intense extreme weather events. This year's heat waves began in June, with weeks of record-breaking temperatures affecting major economies, including Germany and France. Temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius place physical strain on workers, impair concentration, and reduce productivity. Oxford Economics estimates that severe heat events can cut quarterly labor productivity growth by 2 percentage points. The hot, dry conditions have also disrupted transport and energy production. Low river levels have restricted barge traffic on waterways such as the Rhine River, raising shipping costs and slowing deliveries of coal, fuel, and agricultural goods. Higher river temperatures have also forced reductions in nuclear power generation. Earlier this week, France cut nuclear output by 6.4 gigawatts, about 14% of the country's daily electricity demand, as warmer rivers limited reactor cooling.
A wildfire has swept through towns on France's Mediterranean coast, threatening homes and forcing the evacuation of several villages. Local authorities along the Côte d'Azur say strong winds and dry conditions have caused flames to spread quickly, with around 180 hectares destroyed by Sunday evening. Train services between Toulon and Les Arcs have been suspended as the blaze spread. The fire comes after weeks of extreme heat across Western Europe, with the World Meteorological Organization warning that high temperatures, low humidity, and dry vegetation are increasing wildfire risks. In Les Arcs, forecasters say temperatures are set to reach 38 degrees Celsius. A prolonged dry spell is putting growing pressure on communities across Uganda, where the government is now moving emergency food aid to the worst affected areas. The crisis is raising wider concerns over food security, rural livelihoods, and the growing impact of climate extremes in East Africa.
Uganda is facing one of its worst dry spells in recent years, with prolonged drought destroying crops, reducing water supplies, and worsening food insecurity. The crisis is most severe in the northeastern region of Karamoja, where months of little rainfall have left fields barren and pushed vulnerable communities into a growing humanitarian emergency. Government officials say the food shortages have already turned deadly. Authorities have launched an emergency relief operation, with food supplies being sent to the worst affected districts.
Sadly, it has been reported that 16 people have died from causes associated with food shortages in the region. The Office of the Prime Minister has also arranged for another consignment of relief food for immediate distribution to the most affected districts requiring urgent assistance, including Kabong, Kotido, Amdat, Napak, and Moroto.
Uganda's Ministry of Water and Environment has warned that dry conditions are likely to continue through July and into August, placing further pressure on crops, livestock, and already limited water sources. Farmers say the impact is already being felt across rural communities, with grazing areas drying up, milk production falling, and banana plantations badly damaged.
We rely on matoke and milk to get by, but the sun has been way too harsh lately. This dry spell has really cut down the milk our cows give, because the grazing areas have dried up, and the heat has wreaked our banana plantations too. We even took out bank loans to invest in the farms, but now we can't even afford to pay them back.
Officials warn reduced agricultural output in Karamoja could tighten food supplies across Uganda and push prices higher. Scientists say the drought is another sign of increasingly unpredictable weather patterns across East Africa, where communities dependent on rain-fed agriculture are becoming more vulnerable to climate extremes. Forecasters also warn that a developing El Niño later this year could bring heavier rainfall to parts of the region, raising the risk of flooding in areas now struggling with drought.
Now for some news on energy infrastructure. Iraq and Syria have agreed to restore an oil pipeline that has been out of use for decades, signing a memorandum of understanding to begin the project. Iraqi officials say the move is intended to widen the country's export options, strengthen energy links, and support regional energy security. The pipeline, which stretches from Kirkuk to Syria's Mediterranean coast, has been closed since being damaged during past conflicts. An international consortium, including Chevron, will now carry out technical studies before work begins. While the deals signed by Iraq, Syria, and an international consortium paved the way for a Mediterranean crude oil export pipeline. Joining us now to talk on the project and the motive for reviving the historic oil connection is Yashar Sarı, an Istanbul-based analyst. Yashar, welcome. Thank you for joining us on A News. Now, this pipeline is meant to link Iraq with Syria's Mediterranean ports, opening a new export route that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. How has the war in the region affected the plans to revive this historic route?
First, for inviting, I would thank you. This pipeline was there. I mean, the Kirkuk-Banias pipeline, the name. It has been mostly out of the operation since it was the damage during the 2003 United States-led invasion of the Iraq. As you mentioned, one of the reasons why this pipeline is they rebuild or reopen they are planning to open this pipeline because of the global shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has sharply declined in the wake of the Israel-United States attack to Iran. So promoting prompting the countries, the regional countries, to consider alternative road, and one of the alternative road is the opening the previously functioning pipeline. This is the Kirkuk-Banyas, because Iraq cannot export its oil through Gulf because of the danger and threat of the Iran. And the alternative is this pipeline. This is not the only the pipeline. They're also talking about creating the new line, not only pipeline, but the railway from the Saudi Arabia to passing through Jordan and Syria to Turkey. So this pipeline has the two significance. One is this memorandum signed between the Iraqi and the Syrian side in United States, in Houston, in a Chevron center, headquarters. So that is showing that the American involving this process, the American company is Chevron, and the American Secretary, Energy Secretary Chris Wright was the ceremony. So the American is the main initiator of this project. The second result of this pipeline, or the reason why this pipeline is establishing, the American having the close relation both in Iraq and current Iraqi government led by Ali al-Zaidi. His first visit was to United States, and also the American government having the very close relation with the al-Shara, the Syrian president. So that way is showing that the American providing the security and stability in both these two countries, and having the opportunity building the revitalizing this pipeline system.
And Yashar, now that there is this initial framework, there's still a lot of work to do. There need to be engineering studies, commercial negotiations, regulatory approvals. From historical experience, how long do such projects take from this stage to the first deliveries?
Okay, first there is already pipeline line is there. You know, this is it was until 2003 it was functioning pipeline. As we know, the energy investment, infrastructure investment is the long-term investment. But because of the already line is clear, they just need to revitalize, they renew the structure, both the port cities Banyas and the carrying that oil from Kirkuk to Banyas. So this takes several years, but I don't expect more than 3 years, and that is important, because this kind of the pipelines, if they start functioning, at least having the 20-25 year agreement who involved in this process, and Chevron Chevron desired to involve this process. As we know, Chevron, the American President Trump offered the Chevron to revitalize the Venezuelan oil system, but they hesitate to investing the Venezuela, but they are very eager to invest. So that one of the reasons is they expect that this pipeline can be become functional very quickly. I expected 3 years is enough to revitalize this pipeline.
And with so much American involvement, you've mentioned Chevron, there's also a US-based global investment firm along with a Qatari company. Especially under this second Trump administration, do you see any room for the project to be expedited even further?
I mean, this is the first step. There are several proposals emerge. This is not only related pipeline, but also creating the railway, this historical Hijaz railway. So in that sense, basically they are moving from the Gulf region to carrying this line to Mediterranean coastal cities. Actually, before the pipeline, before the war, there was another project, India, Middle East, European, the transportation system, which is Israel supposed to be part of it, because of the Israel and the American action, and of course what happened in Gaza is killed this project. So there are several different projects, not only related pipeline, but also transportation line in this region, trying to make these regional countries to reaching the more or less open seas. And Mediterranean is the important point. Why? Because the Middle East countries mainly supplier, European countries mainly consumer, and European countries need that oil for them because of they are not buying anymore from Russia.
And with this war, Yashar, we're seeing oil prices go up and down and up and down. Looking at all this that we're seeing in the Middle East right now, how are exporters adapting?
I mean, the first thing is the war is creating opportunity for the oil companies, big energy companies. So they are benefiting from this war because of the price of the oil and natural gas. Fossil fuels are increasing, but they have also difficulties because of the 25% of the oil and in some level is natural gas were coming from the Gulf region. So Gulf region become unstable region, and the export coming from the oil and natural gas in those regions is not stable. So that is the creating problem. For that reason, they are more emphasized on the more stable, more beneficial, more peaceful area which they can explore. One of them is Venezuela, the other is the Caspian region, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, and also reaching the market. The easiest way to reaching market, either through Azerbaijan, Turkey, that for the Caspian-based fossil fuel, or the Middle East countries, they can reach to market through Mediterranean port cities. That is for that reason, big oil companies, giant oil companies, investing this kind of project, which they are expecting in the future to profit from this kind of project.
And Yashar, just briefly, please, we're running out of time. Do you see this Strait of Hormuz situation, this major disruption, permanently changing how energy is transported both to Europe and Asia?
I mean, it has impact, but we cannot we cannot say that fully disregard the Gulf region, because of the Gulf region is the main oil and natural gas producing region. So in that way, the Gulf region will continue playing important role in the fossil fuel trade. But the alternative roads need to find. So one of the best alternative road is to reaching the Mediterranean coastal cities, port, where they can export their goods to those countries need to those resources. So in that sense, yes, the Hormuz will lose some of its impact on the market, but not totally.
Yashar, thank you kindly for joining us on A News and sharing your analysis.
Thank you for inviting. Have a nice program.
All right, in other news, at least 6 people have been killed and 21 injured after 2 earthquakes struck central Peru at the weekend. The tremors, measuring magnitudes 5.1 and 3.7, hit Chupaca province in the mountainous Junin region, around 300 kilometers east of Lima. According to the authorities, around 300 people have been left destitute, with 48 homes destroyed and over a dozen others damaged. Emergency crews are clearing debris amid concerns that more victims may be trapped. Dozens of people are feared dead after a ferry carrying 133 people capsized off the coast of Guyana late on Saturday. Authorities said 67 people, including 15 children, were rescued, but no other survivors have been found. The vessel, with 17 crew members, capsized 7 miles from shore while traveling from the capital, Georgetown, to the village of Port Kaituma. A number of people on board were reportedly not listed on the ferry's list of passengers, which the authorities say has complicated the rescue operation.
The team from the Ministry of Health.
Okay, we'll be back after a short break, finding out how Afghanistan is seeking new trade routes through Central Asia as transit with Pakistan falls to its lowest in years. Don't go away.
More than 20,000 partisan fighters have been hidden. We found only 3,000.
My grandmother had 3 brothers. In the graveyard, the body of just one of them.
Their struggle was very unequal and against a state that had defeated such a force as Nazi Germany.
A lot of resistant fighters in the beginning of Soviet occupation actually would end up here, if not killed somewhere in the woods.
She was arrested at her home. Her 7-year-old daughter ran to her and screamed, "Mom, please take me with you." This record having the names of the individuals who were placed in the list of deportations.
I was born in Kengia, in a labor camp. My mother was a partisan liaison.
The first years were extremely difficult, of course. Poverty, hunger. The temperature sometimes dropped to minus 50 degrees.
The train stations, like the one behind me, once said goodbyes to thousands of people carried from across the Baltic states toward Siberia.
Welcome back, you're watching A News. Armenian authorities have launched a criminal investigation into allegations that voters were offered bribes to boost support for a political party during June's local elections.
Armenia's Anti-Corruption Committee said on Monday that it had opened criminal proceedings over alleged electoral bribery involving supporters of the Strong Armenia party. The committee said party supporters, acting by prior agreement, had promised bribes to a group of voters in the Massis community of Ararat province in an effort to secure the highest possible number of votes for the party. Authorities said the evidence was obtained during joint operations by the Anti-Corruption Committee and the Yerevan City Police Department. The committee also released recordings linked to the investigation. In one conversation, the speakers discuss registering 4 people and finding rented accommodation in the village. Another exchange focuses on a group of voters and their participation in the election. The recording then appears to show a discussion about where the voters should be registered and how they should cast their ballots.
Look, you know what the thing is? If they have to vote, let them vote for the one we want. If not, that house is mine. I am not giving permission for them to come and participate in the elections at that address.
The Anti-Corruption Committee said several people had been detained. Searches and other procedural actions have also been carried out.
Transit trade between Afghanistan and Pakistan has reportedly fallen to its lowest level in years, dropping sharply during Pakistan's 2026 fiscal year. The decline comes as Afghanistan redirects more of its trade through Iran Central Asia, and other international markets.
Pakistani media report that the value of Afghan transit trade through Pakistan has fallen to just $367 million. Before 2021, the annual value stood at around $5 billion, with approximately 89,000 containers transported each year. In the latest fiscal year, however, that number reportedly dropped to about 11,600 containers. The figures represent a dramatic reversal from 2023, when more than 102,000 containers passed through Pakistan and the total value of transit trade reached $6.7 billion. The report identifies the closure of border crossings between Afghanistan and Pakistan, as well as Kabul's growing use of Iranian routes as major reasons for the decline. Afghan officials say the country had already begun reducing its reliance on Pakistan before the crossings were closed. Shafi Azam, head of the economic relations at Afghanistan's foreign ministry, says more than 60% of Afghan goods were previously destined for Pakistan. He says exporters are now reaching markets in Central Asia, Russia, China, India, the Gulf, and Europe through newly established trade corridors. Azam says border restrictions have accelerated Afghanistan's market diversification. He has urged Afghan businesses to improve product quality and packaging to meet international standards and remain competitive in these new markets. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A-News.
Kazakhstan and Georgia will begin a pilot electronic permit scheme to digitalize cross-border freight operations along the Middle Corridor from Wednesday. The program was agreed during a meeting of the joint Kazakhstan-Georgia Commission on International Road Transport in Astana. The new system aims to reduce administrative work to speed up the process. Officials also confirmed plans to introduce an unlimited permit quota once the transition to electronic document exchange is complete. Georgia is deepening its artificial intelligence ties with China. The announcement comes weeks after the two countries upgraded their relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Nikolashvili has more on that in Tbilisi.
In Shanghai, at the high-level meeting on global governance of artificial intelligence, Economy Minister Mariam Kroishvili confirmed a joint AI working group with China's National Development and Reform Commission. It's the first concrete output of a signed memorandum between the two governments. Georgia is also building its first AI research center in Kutaisi and drafting a national AI strategy from scratch. Previously, back in June, China's Xi Jinping and Georgian President Mikhail Kavalashvili jointly announced the upgrade to a comprehensive strategic partnership, 3 years after the original 2023 agreement. Kroishvili linked that political shift directly to the AI cooperation and to a separate infrastructure strategic move for a Black Sea submarine fiber optic cable and new data centers, which Tbilisi is marketing as turning Georgia into a digital corridor between Europe and Asia. So far, no timeline, funding figures, or specific deliverables have been attached to the China Working Group, which puts it well behind Georgia's track record with the European Union. The bloc and Tbilisi already had a funded AI partnership since 2022 called the Horizon Europe project. That linked Georgian researchers with Germany's TFKI and France INRIA until last year. Now a multi-million euro follow-up program has begun this year with the EU and 13 international partners. Whether the Kutaisi Center becomes a genuine hub or stays at the memorandum stage remains to be seen. Nini Nikolaishvili, Batumi, A-News.
Now to Uzbekistan. Beyond its vast gold reserves, the Kizilkum Desert is home to one of Central Asia's most important wildlife sanctuaries. Our correspondent Sevil Rajapova visited the area as part of the Aral Sea Wetlands projects and sent us this report.
stretching across roughly 300,000 square kilometers between the Amu Darya and Sir Darya rivers. Kizilkum, which means red sands, is the largest desert in Central Asia and the 15th largest in the world. Beneath the sand lies one of the world's richest gold-bearing regions. The desert is home to the Moving Tower deposit in the Navai region, widely recognized as one of the largest open-pit gold mines on Earth. The giant quarry covers an area of nearly 9 square kilometers, and it's around 600 meters deep. Kizilkum remains the backbone of Uzbekistan's gold industry. Mining operations produce more than 120 tons of gold annually, while new deposits continue to be discovered in places like Chukur-Kuduk field, where reserves have been estimated at more than 130 tons of gold. Yet beyond its mineral wealth, Kizilkum is also home to unique natural habitats that cannot be found anywhere else in the region. One of them is the Kizilkum State Reserve, located along the Amu Darya near Uzbekistan's border with Turkmenistan. It covers more than 10,000 hectares and was established to protect rare desert and floodplain ecosystems and preserve the region's unique biodiversity.
One of the greatest threats to these forests is fire. During dry periods, the risk of wildfires increases significantly. Another major challenge is the large number of mosquitoes and insects, which create difficulties both for wildlife and for the people working in these areas. Insects and pests can have a serious impact on animals. The forests themselves are extremely important because they provide habitat and shelter for wildlife. If the forests disappear, animals are forced to move into desert areas where conditions are much harsher and food resources are more limited. Another problem is seasonal flooding. Since these forests are located along riverbanks, they can be inundated when water levels rise. Flooding creates difficulties, particularly during the breeding season. The breeding period usually falls at the end of May and the beginning of June. At this time, animals need forest cover to protect and raise their young. When forests are flooded, many animals move into the desert to breed. There, however, they become more vulnerable to predators such as jackals and other carnivorous animals, which can attack their offspring. For this reason, forest rangers are constantly working to protect these areas. Various projects have been implemented to support their work. Through these projects, they have received assistance in the form of binoculars, cameras, sleeping equipment and tents, helping them carry out their conservation activities more effectively.
In a landscape where summer temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius, the waters of the Amu Darya create a lifeline through the desert. The reserve combines Tugay forest, wetlands and desert habitats, and they provide shelter for hundreds of species of plants and animals. Among its most valuable habitats are the endangered Bukhara deer and goitre gazelle. Migratory birds, including pelicans, flamingos, and herons, use the area as a seasonal refugee. Scientists say ecosystems like this are becoming increasingly important as environmental pressures grow across the region. Protecting areas like Kizilkum has become a growing priority for Uzbekistan and its international partners. Across the desert, protected areas and nature reserves are safeguarding rare species, while reforestation programs are working to combat desertification through the planting of drought-resistant vegetation. Conservation efforts are also supported by modern monitoring systems, scientific research and anti-poaching measures, all aimed at preserving one of Central Asia's most fragile natural environments. It is Yurid Rajab reporting from Bukhara, Uzbekistan A News.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.